Okay, so Mutant Mayhem has just come out, and that of course means another video ranking the TMNT movies. And this one could be pretty interesting, and could be very decisive among the fans, just because I got a feeling that this movie is either going to be one that people either love or hate when comparing it to other movies. So yeah, let's get started, let's go! And before we do that, let me know in the comment section below what your favourite TMNT movie is, as I've got a feeling it's going to be pretty interesting to see where Mutant Mayhem is on people's list. So yeah. Okay, so last up is Secret of the Ooze. Okay, so this one I need to explain quite a bit, just because I know quite a few fans are probably going to be disagreeing with me quite a bit on this list. Okay, so the reason why I have it as last place is just because this movie really does feel a lot like the TV show that was coming out at the time. Now, normally that would not really be a bad thing, just because at the time the TV show was really successful, and I know that a lot of people did really enjoy the show at the time, and they just want to see a lot of those elements in the movie, which I can't complain because that's honestly a really good way of going around the movie. But with that being said, I'm not really the biggest fan of the 87 show all too much, so when they do have all those elements implied into this movie, it doesn't really work all too well for me. And don't get me wrong, I do think that this movie is still pretty fun and really good. I do like the inclusion of Toko and Raza and stuff like that, but I would sad to say that because of how much it feels like the 87 show with all the kiddiness and all that, it really doesn't really feel like a good sequel to follow up for the 1990 movie. Okay, next up is the TMNT 3 movie. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me again on this one and say that this one is probably the worst one, but I was to say that this movie did actually do quite a lot of good things in this movie. I did really enjoy the whole location thing and time travel elements in this movie, and did think that this movie did actually do quite a lot of good things in this movie. I just think that it gets bogged down by bad animatronics, the story a little bit as well, and I don't think that this movie is bad whatsoever. I do think that maybe there are some bits in this movie that are, not as good as other bits, but this movie is still enjoyable. And I would have to say that how this movie handles the action and stuff like that, we're going more into the roots of the first movie with a little bit more of a darker tone and stuff like that, and even the turtles using the weapons, it does feel more like an actual Ninja Turtle movie instead of the actual cartoon, so I'll have to give it some props there, but overall I do enjoy this movie to some extent. Okay, next up is the 2007 movie. Now, this movie is one which I'm really disappointed in myself for actually putting it so low on this list. But this movie, I do have a lot of childhood memories, and again, it is so disappointing for me to put it so low on this list. And yeah, again, I have so many childhood memories for this movie, and with the whole core elements of this movie being around Raph and Leo and stuff like that, I do think that the movie does work really well, and is a really great story for those two characters. But with that being said, I do feel as though that pretty much every other character is pretty much screwed over, and none of the other characters ever really get the time to shine, or actually any be good or developed or anything like that. And I would have to say that if this movie did get these sequels that it was supposed to get, then I do think that this movie would be a lot higher on my list, just so that I know that, there was a future for these characters, and they will get developed and stuff like that. But because it's just a one-time thing with these turtles, it doesn't really feel as though these characters are actually any good whatsoever. And again, it's so disappointing for me to put this movie so low on my list, just because I just have so many fond memories of this movie growing up. But at the same time, looking back on it now, I do feel as though that some of the big main problems throughout this movie do definitely shine, and it does somewhat affect my movie viewing experience now, but overall, it was a good movie growing up. Okay, next up is the TMNT Out of the Shadows movie. Now, this movie, I've got a feeling a lot of people are going to complain about this one, just because I know that I said that I didn't like Secret of the Ooze, just because it took a lot of inspiration from the 87 show, and with this movie, it definitely does take a lot of inspiration from that show, but I'd say that it does it in a really interesting and good way. Now, the reason why I say this is just because I feel as though Outshadows took the 87 show and more or less modernising it and making it a bit more mature, a bit more adult and stuff like that, and throughout this whole movie, I just have a blast with it. Now, I know that this movie definitely does have its problems, and I'm not even denying it, but again, I'll just say that this movie is just so much fun to watch, from being Rocksteady being in live action, Krang being in live action, Technodrome being in live action, the fight between the turtles, being Rocksteady, that was amazing. This movie had so many great moments and so many fun action scenes. it's somewhat hard to say that this movie is not good. Now this movie, I'll just say that it's somewhat a little bit difficult for me to rank, just because I do like this movie a lot more than the 2014 movie, but for some reason for me, it doesn't feel right or natural for me to put this movie higher than the 2014 movie. And I want to say that I do like this movie a lot more than 2014, but at the same time, it just does not feel right for me to put this any higher. But I love this movie so much, and if anything, I want to put this movie so much higher on the list, but at the same time, I just don't think I can, just because something inside me just says it's not right, so yeah. Okay, so next up is the 2014 movie, and oh god, where do I even begin? This movie is one which I feel as though the fans are definitely divided on, if it's actually good, or if it's actually bad, or something like that. For me, I'd say that this movie is a really interesting one. I'd say that this movie does a really good, interesting take on the Turtles, and does some really unique things which I do really enjoy about the movie, with the action scenes, like even for the Turtles themselves. Just because I do like how each Turtle is more different and more unique, like compared to the other versions of Turtles, where they more or less had like the same sort of body build, but in this one they're all different. And do like how in future interpretations of the Turtles, they do carry over these design elements into those other versions, which I do like. And again, I do think that this movie is a lot of fun, but I think it's one of these kind of movies they have to be in the right mood to really enjoy. But with that being said, I do quite enjoy this movie quite a lot. There are quite a lot of good things in this movie. I really enjoy the whole fight scene down the mountain with the snow. That scene was really great and amazing. And I just think that this movie is really good and really fun. But I think it's one of these movies that you have to like from the beginning, and also you have to be in the right mood for. But overall, I'd say that this movie is actually really great. Okay, next up is the Batman vs the TMNT. And oh boy, where do I even begin with this movie? I feel like the title itself just says it all about this movie, and I don't really know what else to really say about it. It's just so much fun to watch from start to beginning with all the interactions, and it's one of these movies that it's somewhat hard to believe even exists. Now, the comic itself is one of these things where like, oh my god, how does this work? I mean, it's almost a perfect story in comic book form, but again, you're wondering like, how does this work? How is this even a thing? But going into this movie, it's just like, yeah, okay, we definitely reached peak cinema. And for this one to be a direct-to-DVD release, it's something which I'm somewhat surprised at and somewhat a little bit saddened by this one. Just because I know that this movie would have done really well in the box office and stuff like that. And it's somewhat disappointing that not many people do really know about this movie whatsoever. And I do feel as though that this one is one which I do think more people do need to watch and know about. Because I just don't think many people know about it and know how much fun it is. And yeah, I can't believe that I'm even talking about a Batman and TMNT movie. It's one of these weird things, but it's amazingly great. Okay, next up is Rise of TMNT, and oh boy, where do I even begin with this movie? This one, I do feel as though, is a really great send-off to the whole TV show, and if it doesn't get picked up for season 3, or continued in any more movies or anything like that, then I do feel as though that this is a really great send-off to this universe and stuff like that. And throughout this whole movie, it's just so great with what they do in this movie. And I have to say that they took everything that was great about the TV show and then just turned up to 11, and it was amazing. The animation alone is just top notch perfect. I think it might be down to the fact that this one was made in HD and stuff like that, and it looks beautiful. The story, the acting, it's just too amazing not to put into words. Now, I do have a few gripes with Leonardo in this movie, with how he's portrayed, but I think other than that, this movie is just so much fun, so great and stuff like that. And again, I do think that this movie is one of these ones that you either need to like from the beginning, or you're not going to like it whatsoever. But I think that this movie just like more or less takes all the good elements about Rise, and then, you know, just like kicks up to 11 and just be amazing. And I really wish I could say much more than that, but I just feel like I'm going to keep repeating myself over and over again, which is how amazing this movie was. And if it is truly the last thing from Rise, then at least it went out on a bang. Okay, for the number 3 spot, had to be the Mutant Mayhem movie. Now, this movie, I'm maybe a bit biased just because I've only just seen it today, and I feel as though that I may be thinking, oh yeah, this is the best movie ever and stuff like that, just because I've seen it. But there are a few things in this movie that I do definitely disagree with how they are taking this universe in. But at the same time, I do feel as though that this whole movie does do a lot of really interesting things in this movie, and there's a lot of really great things in this movie, to the point where I say that they did a few things like really good and better than some of the other versions, which is just amazing. And then something which I don't want to give them a lot more credit for is the fact that they gave us so many mutants, so many that would never get to see the light of day on the big screen, and they finally did it. I mean, you know, we got Leatherhead, we got Mondo Gecko, Wraith Lay, so many characters who are recognisable in the TMNT community, but more or less, you know, like shunned away from the like movie experience, but now they're being used and put onto the big screen, and you know, I just can't wipe this big smile off my face after seeing all that. So yeah, I must admit, overall, this movie is just so great and so much fun. I do think that the ending is, well, I'd say, some problems do shine for the future for this universe, but at the same time, with what they do in this movie, it is just so great, and I just can't wait to see more of it, and it was just so much fun. And I've got a feeling that this may be the place where most people put Mutant Mayhem, but either way, this movie is just so great, and yeah, I can't wait to see more. Okay, so for my number 2 spot, I did 1990 movie, and I love this movie. I'd say that this movie is near perfection. Now this movie, I just find little nitpicks in this movie, when it's like, oh yeah, they could improve that, they can improve that, and it's just only minor little things in here. But other than that, this movie is almost near perfection, and it is just so perfect, and whatever reason you want to give it to be the number 1 spot, I completely agree. And with that being said, depending on my moods on some days, this movie is my number 1 movie, and I just think that this movie is just so great, so perfect, and everything in so many ways, and it's just so hard to put this movie into words, which is how good and great it is. And for this one to be like the first movie and still be the best movie is somewhat hard to beat with. And you know, and this movie is just gonna be like one of these ones that, like, no matter what they do with Turtles, this movie will always be the one which every movie gets compared to. And I just think that's so great, and this movie is just, honestly, it's just so perfect. Whatever reason you want to give it, I completely agree with it, and I stand by it. This movie is amazing, near perfect. It is, oh god. Yeah, I can't even use the words to describe how good this movie is. So, yeah. Okay, so for my number 1 spot, it had to be the TMNT Turtles Forever, and oh boy, I'd say that this movie is also another one that is near perfect. This movie has so much going for it, and it's just so great. Now the reason why I do think that sometimes this movie is better than the 1990 movie is for 3 reasons. Now the first reason is because it has the 2003 Turtles in, and yeah, do I have to say anything else other than that? 2003 Turtles are my favourite Turtles in terms of cartoons, movies and stuff like that, so, you know, it definitely did have a big advantage over that. Now, second thing is that this movie deals with the multiverse and has so many different versions of the Turtles, such as the Mirage Turtles, 87 Turtles, and then even the whole multiversal scene where you get to see the other versions of Turtles. So many Turtles, so many great things. Yeah? Now the third reason is because this movie embraces everything great about the Ninja Turtles. Now I know that with the TMNT movies, they do have to be a little, I don't know how to really describe this, but you know, they have to think about the public audience, and you know, like some of them don't keep up with Turtles or not really know too much about Turtles. But when you get a movie like this that embraces everything great about Turtles, inside jokes and stuff like that, you can definitely tell the love for the franchise and stuff like that. And without them having to like really care about people who don't really know too much about Turtles, I think that this movie just embraces everything great about it. And it's a shame they don't get to see a lot more of this nowadays. So yeah, that's my list for the TMNT movies. I'm really interested to hear what you say about this in the comment section below, because I've got a feeling quite a few people are definitely going to be disagreeing with me on quite a few of these ones. But yeah, that's gonna be it for today, guys. If you just please share, like, subscribe and all stuff. Goodbye, yo, bye.